Question number 1. What do you believe to be the most important duty that a president should fulfill? In addition to this duty, the president must strive to fulfill APSA's mission statement. How do you envision APSA carry out its mission statement in the following year? In examining the president's bylaws, I think the most important duty the president should fulfill is supervise all executive board members from completing his or her respective duties and take disciplinary action if necessary. An organization is only as strong as the individuals leading it. With a board as large as 18, there is much room for error. It is the president's duty to make sure that each officer is keeping up with their duties and encouraging them to pick up the slack if needed, or even aiding in the completion of their work if appropriate and necessary. Even with the vice president positions filled, I think the president should prioritize making sure that all executive board members are fulfilling their respective responsibilities. If any officer is slacking, it is the president's own responsibility to determine the cause of said board member's failure to complete their duties. Every intervention possible should be made before disciplinary action is taken, and given that the president has the cooperation of the board member being dealt with. I think this is the most important duty that the president has, because each board member needs to be pulling their weight in order for the year to be successful. The president should be knowledgeable of everything happening within the organization. Therefore, they need to keep their officers accountable by monitoring their work and making sure that it is being done at an acceptable level. I believe I already addressed how APSA can carry out its mission statement in my speech. As the mission statement states, APSA is a nonprofit, culturally based organization aimed to unite diverse students to learn and share in Asian American Pacific Islander cultural identities, traditions, and beliefs. I want to integrate at least one cultural aspect into every one of our events so that our members have the chance to bond over the unique, shared experiences of being API individuals. Question number 2. APSA has continued to pride itself in being a cultural organization on campus for the past few years. However, members of the community feel that social aspects are now much more overpowering. How would you, as president, seek to strengthen APSA's cultural and political pillars? As a disclaimer, I would like to state that this belief that social aspects are now much more overpowering is not exactly fairly made. It is true from an objective standpoint, but APSA is a community based on culture, even if culture does not drive everything that we do. Our members unite here because similar cultural backgrounds make them feel welcomed and at home. Culture is embedded in our values and mannerisms. Although it is true that APSA can do much more to strengthen our cultural and political pillars. As I've already stated in the previous question and in my speech, I already have an idea in mind as to how we can make our organization more culturally focused. In regards to making APSA more politically aware, I believe we can do this by educating our members on the political affairs of Asian and Pacific Islander countries. We mainly focus on American politics because those are the affairs that most immediately affect us as we live in America, but we should be knowledgeable of what is going on in the countries that we identify with. By focusing on the political affairs of Asian and Pacific Islander countries, we can strengthen our identification with those countries by strengthening our knowledge on them. At least personally, I know I feel more connected with my Filipino roots when I can say I know what is going on there currently in terms of political and social happenings. I want to try having a political cultural GBM that focuses on a political issue being experienced in Asia or the Pacific Islands and attempts to strengthen our political pillar. Question number 3. The president is responsible for settling controversial issues within board that often leave their fellow board members emotionally charged. How will you tackle this challenge and ensure that the executive team remains productive when navigating those polarizing opinions in order to maintain one cohesive APSA voice? Speaking from experience, a lot of the emotion from these possibly emotionally charged issues is internal. When issues concern an organization that represents your culture, it's hard not to get personally attached. And as board members, we should be personally attached, but only to a certain extent. I think the most important thing I can do to diffuse emotionally charged conversations is remind my board members not to speak from a personal point of view. They need to think objectively, with the organization's best interest in mind, instead of taking what is said to heart and as a personal attack. There are a number of community guidelines that many of us are familiar with when speaking in supposed safe spaces. In these situations, I will remind my fellow board members of these guidelines. For example, listen to understand, not only to respond, or refraining from using you statements and opting to use I statements. I will also implement these guidelines in formulating my own speech. Another important intervention I can use is remaining neutral as the one facilitating conversations on controversial issues. I will act as a mediator. I will acknowledge all the points being made and ensure that everyone's opinion is being heard, given that it is appropriate and helpful in guiding the conversation in a positive direction. I will make sure that the board discussions result in a cohesive decision that everyone can at least agree upon, if not be happy with. Question number 4. What is the difference between a good and great president? What are the qualities and attributes that distinguish these two? A good president completes the guidelines outlined in the bylaws. A good president maintains APSA's structure and reputation. A good president takes handicaps to board functioning at face value and works with said handicap. A great president tacks on more responsibilities to their outlined bylaws when able to. A great president does everything within their power to make sure that they leave their term knowing that APSA's structure and reputation are improved through the work she and her board put in throughout the year. A great president does not accept handicaps and is instead determined to work around them to ensure that even when at a disadvantage, APSA as an organization can function better than it did the year before. A good president settles with being able to say that they got the job done, whereas a great president earns the right to say that they got the job done, created more jobs for themselves, and completed those too. A great president has vision and predetermined goals that will lead to the achievement of their vision. As an individual, a great president must be ambitious and headstrong. They have to be willing to lay themselves bare for their board and general members, so it is known that their intentions for APSA are genuine. A great president leaves the next year's batch of candidates scared but determined to fill their shoes. I can't say now whether or not I will be a good or great president, but I hope it is known that I will try my hardest. I may not have a complete idea of what I'm getting myself into, but I will set the bar high for myself so that if I do get the position, I will have these promises that I'm making to you all and myself to keep me accountable. The fifth and final question is, APSA is one, if not of the largest student organizations on campus outside of Greek fraternities and sororities. APSA, therefore, can have a very powerful voice towards any campus-wide issues or referendum. How will you use and mobilize APSA's large member base in a way that will enact a positive impact on the campus community? First, I will determine APSA's standpoint with my fellow board members. Should a campus-wide issue or referendum arise, I will take it up with my board members and we will have an open discussion to see which side of said issue is supported by the majority. Upon coming to a decision, I will draft up an official statement to be made on behalf of APSA. The statement will be edited and approved by the rest of board before it is promoted during GBM and or on our social medias. I will use my title and encourage my fellow board members to use theirs as well to advocate for positive change within campus when we are given the chance.